Executive presence is a holy grail of senior leaders that promises charisma, respect, impact, and success for those that find it secret. Yet many leaders completely fail to grasp this elusive quality through a simple but profound misunderstanding and end up exuding the complete opposite, eroding trust, relationships, and leadership. If you have the experience, skills, and ambition for your role, yet feel that your natural authority and influence need development, this is for you. Having worked with hundreds of CEOs and senior executives, I'm going to share what executive presence really is and how to embody it. You'll be amazed at just how counterintuitive it actually is. First off, I'm going to use a couple of examples drawn from my own experience as a leadership coach to illustrate how presence is commonly and wrongly understood, followed by a case study of how I helped a struggling CEO connect with his presence to turn his leadership right around. A couple of years ago, I worked with the executive team of a global luxury hotel group at one of their rather opulent UK venues. I noticed that something was off when the CEO excused himself from the meetings that I facilitated during the day. A team without its leader is not really a team. Nevertheless, we went ahead and made great progress exploring their leadership roles. The conversations became progressively more open and candid, signalling high degrees of mutual trust and connection. Then the CEO walked in, unannounced, to join the meeting, having had a change of heart. His presence had an immediate impact. Everyone sat up and paid attention to him. Being tall, with a military bearing and a shock of white hair, amplified his physical presence. This was raw charisma, power and authority personified. And this is so often the kind of presence that leaders yearn for and even employ executive presence coaches to teach them. AI tells us that executive presence coaching helps leaders inspire confidence, project authority, and influence others effectively. It provides personalized coaching on a blend of skills, including communication, emotional intelligence, and body language to enhance leadership impact. Notice that the focus is on the individual's outer behaviour, and we'll revisit this later on. Now, coming back to the unexpected entrance of the CEO. Notwithstanding the palpable impact of his presence on his team, there was another consequence that betrayed the real dynamics of the situation and lack of real presence on his part. The room went silent, and despite repeated attempts to reignite the kind of conversation that preceded his appearance, it remained muted other than a few stilted remarks that fell far short of the previous candour and transparency. He'd killed the meeting stone dead just by being there. His version of presence was, instead, a projection of fear. His executive team worked not just in awe of him, but in abject fear of him. Needless to say, there was little I could do with this team without working with him individually first, and that simply wasn't an option. We'll explore these dynamics in more depth, but before, I'll describe another case of presence gone awry. My client was the owner and CEO of a fixtures and fittings business who had a larger-than-life personality which he would use to great effect to engage people, establish rapport with them. He was all bonhomie and hail fellow well met. Initially, his approach was quite seductive, and people would fall for this projection of presence, assuming it to be genuine and part of his character. But they quickly discovered that he could turn on a sixpence and become hostile and angry at the drop of a hat. With those he needed, he would go to pains to accommodate and curry favour in a quite brazen manner. The guy wanted the respect, the influence, the trust, and the likability that are all associated with presence. His best, but completely misguided efforts backfired and left him with very little credibility. So we have an example of a boss with high levels of executive presence that worked against the relationship with his team by making them fearful, and another who, in trying to garner all the benefits of executive presence, achieved just the opposite. Two very different characters running completely different businesses. But can you spot the common factor between them? Here's a clue. It has nothing to do with their outer worlds of running a business. their relationships, their behaviours, their body language, speech, etc. No. Rather, it is all about their inner worlds of thinking and feeling, the beliefs they carry, and the degree to which they are conscious of their inner dynamics. Presence is an inside job. Once you start targeting outer behaviours, such as tone of voice, posture, demeanour, etc., you are already way down the chain of cause and effect, and on a hiding to nothing if you try to affect change at that level. For the past 20 years, I've progressively developed an inside-out approach to leadership, which prioritises the inner world of leaders, and in particular, their ability to observe these dynamics as they unfold in real time. This can be referred to as metacognition, and operates beyond the physical and psychological dimensions in the existential dimension. It's all about being rather than thinking, feeling, and doing. And it works miracles. But you don't need to be a philosopher or a yogi to go there. In fact, it's the simplest thing in the world, as it lies beyond any need to think or analyse. It's all about observing or witnessing. But don't confuse simple with easy. Let's explore how it applies to true executive presence. The word presence has two distinct meanings. Firstly, it has the meaning that we are using so far in this exploration. Having the properties of charisma, influence, power, attraction, magnetism, etc. The other meaning is the more simplistic and straightforward, meaning the quality of being present, here and now in space and time. Paradoxically, it's the second, less sophisticated meaning, which gives us an insight into the first. In fact, as a leader, you cannot embody true presence without being present, being in the now moment. And when you do, the pursuit of respect, influence, and charisma becomes not only redundant, but counterproductive. Here's why. Chasing any quality at all, takes you out of the present moment and into memories of the past or fantasies of the future. Then the intellect sets to work by constantly asking if you're achieving your goal. Are you being listened to, respected? Are you displaying authority and being magnetic? All of this noise, because that's all it is, detracts further from being present in the here and now and dumps you in a fantasy land that is disconnected from the reality in front of you. Like our first example, you may be wedded to the belief that your presence should intimidate in order to channel your authority. Or like the second example, that it should compel people to like you and thus do your bidding. So you have the leader creating a persona in their minds in order to project and defend it with their intellects. Any belief about yourself which you identify with and defend is called ego. And indeed, when you seek the qualities of presence from ego, it is doomed to fail in such a way as to make it clear that you're on the wrong path. In some, this creates a holier-than-thou or a spiritual ego which can be quite challenging to dissolve. No one but you can do it, and only you are responsible. So what do? Simple. You move the focus of attention from your thinking to your perception. You tune into the now moment through whichever of your five senses are most appropriate. You use whatever is happening around you to connect with the present moment and disconnect from all the mental noise and distractions in the process. You shift from fantasy to reality, from thinking to being. Now, this is far too simple for our sophisticated intellects to swallow, so persistence is required. But I can guarantee that if you follow the discipline, things start to look and feel very different. Firstly, the need to concern yourself with the trivia of how you appear to others just completely evaporates. Constantly assessing how you come across to anyone else but yourself is a fool's game. You'll never know how they perceive you because you are not them. It's simply none of your business. What is your business is how you come across to yourself. Are you being true to yourself? Or are you compromising your integrity by trying to second-guess others and be someone that you are not? Secondly, and this is where the real miracle happens, you begin to embody the true presence which radiates the authentic charisma, the magnetism, and the influence, which in turn garners the respect, impact, and trust which every leader seeks. If you have any doubts over this, bring to mind some of the most influential leaders of our time and ask yourself if they concerned with themselves with leadership presence or whether they were just present. I think you'll find that it really is the last thing on their minds. They are too busy living on purpose through making whatever vision they have a reality. No one does that at scale by obsessing over how others will perceive it. I was reminded of this fundamental pillar of leadership when I worked with the CEO of an arts academy, a household name in many countries. My focus was the organization's management and governance structure, not the CEO per se, yet I was struck with his tangible presence, which you could feel when he walked into a room. This was not the fabricated, contrived presence of so many leaders trying to evoke respect and engineer charisma. It emerged from him being present to everything that was going on around him. When he listened to you, he gave you his full, unwavering attention. When he spoke, he listened to the sound of his own voice. I asked him what his preferred leadership metaphor was. He answered, conductor of the orchestra, a very revealing insight. Conductors concern themselves with the sound the entire orchestra makes. They set the tempo, they listen astutely, and they remain firmly rooted in the present. They are sensitive to the most subtle nuances of rhythm, dynamics, and phrasing. And guess what? Many develop a presence which is quite unmistakable. Yet it is a byproduct of their presence, not the objective. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that you will become a Leonard Bernstein or a Herbert von Karajan, nor should you. What I am suggesting is that the more present you are, the more of yourself you will become, and that self will embody more presence and be more charismatic than any other version of yourself, however hard you may try. Trying to generate presence is self-defeating and creates personas that others see straight through. They will sense the ulterior motive and incline to unnatural behaviour themselves, just like those in the hotel group executive team. A recent client of mine, the CEO of a marketing agency, asked me to help him overcome his increasing frustration with his team. He felt that he was progressively losing respect and authority. His anger at this loss of status made him prone to outbursts and attacks on his people, further eroding trust and relationships. The first, in fact pretty well the only thing I asked him to do, was to start listening to his people with full attention, which meant temporarily suspending his judgment of what they were telling him and consequently the anger that it would have evoked. The emphasis was on deep listening. You can't get angry if you are simply listening and nothing else. One powerful way of intensifying listening is to focus on the sound of people's voices rather than the meaning of the words. That includes the silences between words and sentences. When listening is that deep, the speaker cannot fail to notice how connected you are with them. This only happens through presence, being present. When I met some of his team sometime after working with him, they remarked, without being asked, that they'd noticed a real improvement in him since being coached. They all said how much calmer he had become and how much easier it was to work with him. When a leader is truly present, everything else is taken care of. It reminds me of a statement from one of the Gospels, "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." So, true executive presence can only come from being present. Any attempt at fabricating and contriving the benefits of presence without being present will end in tears. If you found this insightful, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more. See you in the next video.